right near the center of Canadian democracy, where decision makers work, where national defense plans are made. Even within range of the Prime Minister's own office, we found them. They are devices known as IMSI catchers, operating in the heart of Canada's capital. An IMSI catcher is a machine that pretends to be a cell phone tower to attract nearby cell signals. When it does that, it can intercept the unique ID number associated with your phone, the International Mobile Subscriber Identity, or IMSI. That number can then be used to track you. More sophisticated IMSI catchers can even read your text messages and listen in on your calls.
So how did we find out that an IMSI catcher was being used in Ottawa? Well, we got one of these. It's a special type of cell phone called a cryptophone. Now, it looks like a regular phone, but it warns you when an IMSI catcher tries to intercept it. This kind of test has been done by media in other countries, but never before in Canada.
For months, our team took the cryptophone around Ottawa. When it detects an IMSI catcher, it shows a red alert, like this, and we got a flurry of them in December and January. We got alerts in the Byward Market, the Rideau Centre shopping mall, and the CBC offices. An IMSI catcher has about a half-kilometre radius in a city, which means the catchers we detected could reach all of Parliament Hill, Langevin Block, where the Prime Minister's office is, National Defense, the US Embassy, and the Israeli Embassy. We asked the US supplier of the cryptophone, ESD America, to do a more in-depth analysis of the alerts for us. The company is based in Las Vegas, just 15 minutes from the frenzy of the casinos. In a nondescript office, it focuses on counterintelligence. Clients include the US Department of Homeland Security.
Consistently, you've been seeing IMSI catcher activity, definitely.
The CEO, Les Goldsmith, says the catchers are used by all kinds of groups.
Law enforcement, federal agencies, but we're also seeing organised crime and foreign intelligence.
And he says the alerts we were getting do look foreign.
We're seeing more IMSI catchers with different configurations, and we can build a signature. So we're seeing IMSI catchers that are more likely Chinese, Russian, Israeli, and so forth.
Back in Canada, we consulted another expert, someone who knows a lot about IMSI catchers. He comes from a federal security agency and needs to maintain anonymity to protect that work. He sees two very different potential explanations for the presence of IMSI catchers, one domestic, one foreign. He says Russia has used the devices in Canada before.
We learned that Russian intelligence was parked near CSIS with equipment on board to do IMSI catching. After X number of days or weeks, they're capable of identifying the IMSI numbers that belong to intelligence officers. Then, when the Russians were doing a clandestine operation in Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, wherever, they would activate the IMSI catcher and check if the numbers associated with the Canadian intelligence were there. If they were, they'd know the operation was toast, and they'd cancel it.
The other option? Domestic spies.
One possibility is that Canada's communications security establishment has been mandated to monitor the network for protection purposes in a defensive way.
Canada's Electronic Spy Agency, though, insists its activities are directed at foreign entities outside of Canada. It was only last June that we learned that Canadian police were using the devices, and it was because of an investigation involving a mafia killing outside of Montreal back in 2011. Court documents show the RCMP were using an IMSI catcher to monitor the conversations of the alleged killers. During court proceedings, the RCMP also revealed their first purchase of an IMSI catcher came in 2005. The police force also confirmed they keep the information about all the other cell phones within reach of their IMSI catcher. We'll keep that in our section, at our level, so we don't destroy it, but we don't disclose that either, a police officer told the court. Since then, we've learned that some municipal police forces, like Winnipeg and Vancouver, have sought out the technology too. Mostly, police don't want to talk about why they're used, or even if they have one, though we know of at least one instance where an IMSI catcher was used to try to track someone who had been abducted.
In Ottawa, officials that we reached out to said they either couldn't or wouldn't explain who was using an IMSI catcher here. Some embassies said that they couldn't help us. The Russians took the extra step of saying any such suggestion that they were involved in these kinds of activities is bogus and baseless. The Chinese called any suggestion that they were involved irresponsible conjecture. Now, the Ministry of Public Safety, CSIS, the RCMP, and Ottawa Police all said variations on the same thing. They don't discuss tactics, but they do always follow appropriate judicial procedure and the law.
On the face of it, that's extremely disturbing.
Information law expert Teresa Scaza was troubled by our findings. She says even if the technology is being used by Canadian authorities, there's still reason for Canadians to be concerned.
I think there are also serious concerns about what happens to that information afterwards. Is it destroyed? Is it retained? Is it used for other purposes?
There are so many unanswered questions. We now know someone has been using an IMSI catcher near some very sensitive locations. But who and why and what it could all mean for the privacy of Canadians is still shrouded in secrecy. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.